And trust me, the first coin on our list looks like something most folks would toss into a donation jar without thinking twice. A beat-up, grimy, heavily worn 1998 Washington quarter, the kind that has passed through 1,000 hands, been dropped, scraped, washed, bent, and somehow survived decades of hard use. But hold on, because this ugly little survivor might be hiding something unbelievable. In the world of coin collecting, the coins that look the worst sometimes carry the rarest secrets. And this 1998 quarter is no exception. At first glance, this piece looks like it lived a rough life. The edges are smoothed down, the high points of Washington's portrait are flattened, and the date is barely hanging on. The reverse side, the majestic eagle, looks faded, almost ghost-like, worn away by time. But here's the twist most people never expect. The more damage and wear you see, the more you should slow down and look closely. Because this year, 1998, produced some of the most shocking hidden mint errors ever discovered on Washington quarters. Imagine flipping over an ordinary-looking coin and discovering a microscopic flaw that turns it into a small fortune. That's exactly why collectors still hunt down 1998 quarters today. One of the wildest errors from this year is the broad strike, where the quarter was struck without the collar that normally keeps the metal contained. These quarters come out thicker, wider, and oddly stretched, and even in terrible condition, they can go for $12,000 to $25,000. But that's just where it begins. The coin in your hand, with its scratches, dirt, and years of wear, might also be hiding a double die obverse, a subtle doubling in Washington's face. The words, "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Now, here's where the real shock hits, because when one of these double die varieties shows up in a beat-up state, collectors still fight for it, paying anywhere from $8,500 to $30,000, depending on how visible the doubling is, and if this quarter shows signs of a rare off-center strike, where the whole design is shifted a few percent to the left or right. Oh, buckle up, because that's where the value skyrockets. A 1998 off-center Washington quarter, even in rough, dirty condition, can leap into the $50,000 to $85,000 range. And if the off-center is dramatic, say 60% or more, and the date is still visible, we're talking a collector's dream showpiece, a coin that could send your pulse racing, easily reaching $150,000 to $200,000. But here's the real monster. A tiny handful of 1998 Washington quarters were accidentally struck on the wrong metal planchet, like a dime planchet or even a foreign coin blank. Now, this is where collectors lose their minds, because even a coin that looks like it went through a garbage disposal can explode in value. These rare wrong planchet errors have sold for jaw-dropping totals, pushing into the insane range of $300,000 to $450,000 plus, especially at major coin auctions. Think about it. A coin like this one, a coin that looks like it survived a war, a car wash, a pocket full of keys, and 20 years stuck in a vending machine, might secretly be worth more than a house. That is exactly why older collectors, especially those who've handled change for decades, are the ones who discover these treasures. They've built an eye for the unusual. They know that beauty doesn't determine value, rarity does. So if you ever spot a 1998 quarter in terrible shape, don't ignore it. Check the rim, check the alignment, tilt it under the light. Look for stretching, doubling, missed strikes, gaps, and anything that feels off. These tiny clues are what separate ordinary pocket change from six-figure miracles. Our next coin looks even rougher than the first one. A 1991 Washington quarter that seems like it went through life the hard way. The front side is scraped, scratched, rubbed almost smooth, and nearly unrecognizable. Most people would call it junk. They'd toss it in a jar without a second thought. But if you've been with this channel for a while, you know what's coming, and you know better than to dismiss a coin just because it looks damaged. Because sometimes, the most brutal-looking coins hide the wildest secrets. This 1991 quarter tells a story the moment you pick it up. The details on Washington's profile are nearly wiped out. The word "Liberty" looks like it's fading away. The rim shows deep scratches from years of circulation, and the surface has that dull gray tone that only comes from decades of pocket friction, dirt, and rough handling. The reverse side, the eagle is ghosted, almost melted into the metal from wear. But here's where things get interesting. Despite this heavy damage, 1991 is one of those years where the US Mint accidentally released some of the most shocking error quarters ever discovered. And some of those errors don't care about condition, they care about rarity. One of the biggest surprises from 1991 is the rare, multiple strike error. This is when the same coin is struck 2 or 3 times inside the press, creating distorted images, overlapping eagle wings, doubled faces, and twisted text. Even in terrible, scraped-up condition like the coin we're looking at, collectors have paid between $15,000 and $40,000 for authentic multi-strike pieces. But that's not even the most shocking part of 1991. Quarters. There is one error, one that is so rare, so mysterious, and so valuable that it sends collectors into a bidding frenzy. It's the 1991 off-metal error, where a quarter was struck on the wrong planchet. Maybe it was struck on a nickel planchet, maybe on a foreign blank, maybe something even stranger. And believe it or not, even a scratched, heavily worn, abused example can sell for $80,000 to $150,000, simply because the mistake itself is so hard to find. And we're still not done. Another frighteningly rare 1991 variety is the misaligned die strike. That's when the obverse die shifts off-center, causing Washington's portrait to be pushed too high, too low, or too far left on the coin. A dramatic misalignment, especially one where the rim looks lopsided or the reeded edge is uneven, can easily bring $25,000 to $60,000, even in poor condition. But the grail of all grails. A tiny number of 1991 quarters have been confirmed with double denomination errors, meaning the coin was struck twice, once as something else and then again as a quarter. Imagine a coin that shows the faint outline of a dime or even a Lincoln cent behind Washington's face. These pieces are unbelievably rare. They almost never appear, and when they do, they can explode past $250,000, $350,000, even up to $500,000 plus, depending on the clarity of the underlying design. And here's the best part for our coin tonight: scratches and wear don't remove mint errors. Damage happens after the mint. Errors happen during the mint process. And collectors know that. That means this 1991 quarter, despite its rough condition, deserves a close, careful inspection. Tilt it under the light. Check for doubling around the date. Check for stretching of the eagle's wings. Look at the rim. Is it thicker on one side? Are the reeded edges uneven? Does the design look shifted? Does anything feel off? Because the older the coin and the worse the condition, the more likely people ignored it for decades, leaving treasure hiding right under our noses. Now, this next coin. This one stops you in your tracks the moment you see it. A 1986 Washington quarter, but not the bright silver color we're used to. No, this one sits in your hand with a deep, dark, almost smoky black shade spread across the surface. It looks like a coin that lived through a fire, survived a flood, and spent years trapped under car seats. The details are soft, the luster is long gone, and the metal has that eerie, burnt tone that makes older collectors lean in and look a little closer, because sometimes that black shade is hiding something extraordinary. At first glance, this 1986 quarter appears almost lifeless. George Washington's face is dull and ghosted. Liberty looks half erased. In God We Trust is faint and fading. The date 1986 is still visible, but barely holding on. Flip it over, and the eagle on the reverse looks smudged, worn, and swallowed by years of circulation grime. Most people would toss this into a coin counting machine without blinking, but that would be a huge mistake. Because 1986 is one of those years where extremely rare errors slipped out of the mint. Errors that don't care about condition. Errors that can turn even a coin like this, with its dark, rough, burnt-looking surface, into something worth far more than anyone expects. One of the biggest surprises from 1986 is the rare, improperly annealed planchet error, This is where the metal was overheated or chemically changed during processing, creating a dark, almost black tone across the coin. And unlike normal wear, this discoloration comes from inside the mint itself. Collectors pay huge premiums for these properly authenticated pieces, sometimes $20,000 to $50,000, even in rough shape. But the story gets even better. Some 1986 quarters show signs of clash dies. That's when the two dies strike each other without a coin between them, leaving ghostly outlines of the opposite side embedded into the surfaces. Imagine a faint eagle wing appearing on Washington's face, or Washington's profile appearing behind the eagle. Even in poor, darkened condition, these can jump to $35,000 to $80,000, depending on how dramatic the clash looks. And then we get into the really wild territory. A tiny number of 1986 quarters were struck off-center, meaning the design was shifted so far to one side that part of the blank metal is showing. When an off-center strike still shows the date, especially a date like 1986, values can explode. Even a battered, black-toned example can bring $45,000, $90,000, even up to $150,000 if the strike is dramatic. But here's the grail, the mind blower, the coin that gives collectors chills. A microscopic handful of 1986 quarters were mistakenly struck on the wrong metal, such as a copper nickel planchet intended for another denomination, or even a foreign coin planchet stored at the mint. These off-metal errors are unbelievably rare, and when they show up, it doesn't matter if the coin is scratched, dirty, or blackened like this one. The value comes from the mistake, not the condition, and those can reach the six-figure monsters. $220,000, $300,000, $450,000 plus at major auctions. Imagine that, a dark, dirty coin you might not even pick up off the ground, secretly worth more than a luxury car. And remember, black shade alone doesn't confirm anything. Older collectors know discoloration can come from the environment, but mint-caused discoloration is very different. You want to check for weird texture on the surface, color that's uneven or blotchy, a deeper tone that looks baked into the metal, any stretching, doubling, or strange marks, edges that look thicker or thinner in places, rim that's uneven or misaligned. These tiny clues can reveal whether your 1986 quarter is just old and dirty or an ultra-rare mint mistake hiding under a layer of darkness. The moment you pick up this 1978 quarter, you know it has lived a long, rough life. Deep scratches crisscross the entire surface. Washington's face is almost flattened. Liberty is ghosted. In God We Trust looks like it's dissolving into the metal. The edges are worn smooth. The whole coin feels tired, like it's been carried through decades of pockets, wallets, car trays, vending machines, and who knows what else. This isn't a coin you'd show off, unless you knew its secrets. Because this 1978, heavily damaged, fully scratched Washington quarter could be hiding one of the most shocking errors of the late 1970 SC. 1978 was a transition year. The mint was preparing for the new dollar coin era, was juggling multiple denominations, and a few strange mistakes slipped through the cracks. And here's the part most people never expect. Damage happens after the coin leaves the mint. But errors happen during the minting process, and errors can survive even when the coin looks destroyed. This is where things get interesting. One of the most desirable 1978 errors is the broad strike error, where the collar that holds the coin in place during striking fails. The result? A coin that looks stretched, wider than usual, with missing or distorted rims. And even if it's scratched up badly like this one, collectors still pay serious money, anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000, depending on how dramatic the stretch is. But that's far from the only shocker. There's also the extremely rare off-center strike error. And if your 1978 quarter shows that the design is shifted, even slightly, values can jump fast. A minor off-center error, say 510, can easily reach $20,000 to $35,000, even in junk condition. But if the off-center strike is dramatic, 40%, 60%, or more, and the date is still visible. That is when collectors lose their minds. These extreme off-center 1978 quarters have sold for $80,000, $120,000, even up to $200,000 in some cases. But this scratched-up 1978 quarter could be hiding something even bigger, because 1978 is one of the few years where we've seen the unbelievably rare double denomination error, where a coin is struck twice, once as another denomination, then struck again as a quarter. Imagine a faint Lincoln head behind Washington, or a dime's torch behind the eagle. These mistakes are considered holy grails, and even when they are beat up, bent, or scratched beyond recognition, collectors still pay insane prices. How insane? $250,000 to $500,000 plus. Yes, even in awful condition. And here's where the story gets really exciting for a coin that looks this rough, because deep scratches and wear often help reveal these hidden mint errors. You may notice strange ghost lines, repeating patterns, uneven rims, or areas where the strike looks double. These clues don't come from damage, they come from the minting process itself. Another wild 1978 variety worth looking for is the clashed dies error. Imagine the two mint dies slamming into each other with no blank coin between them, leaving the outline of the eagle on Washington's face, or the silhouette of Washington behind the eagle. These eerie, hidden images can be worth $30,000 to $75,000, even when the coin is in horrible condition. And then, the ultimate monster, the incredibly scarce wrong planchet 1978 quarter struck on a foreign coin blank, or on the wrong metal entirely. These errors are so rare that only a handful have ever surfaced. And guess what? Condition barely matters. Even with full scratches, missing details, discoloration, and deep wear, collectors will pay $300,000, $380,000, even $450,000 plus for a confirmed genuine off-metal strike. Now, think about that for a moment. A dirty, beat-up, fully scratched 1978 quarter, the kind people would throw into a Coinstar machine, could secretly be worth more than a luxury SUV, or more than some homes. Now hold on tight, because this next coin, this 1970 Washington quarter, might look like something you'd sweep off the garage floor, but inside its dirt, grime, and heavy wear sits one of the strangest mint stories of the entire 20th century. The moment you pick it up, it feels old, it feels tired, it feels like it's lived through decades of pockets, toolboxes, pickup trucks, laundromats, and vending machines. The rim is worn smooth, the luster is long gone, Washington's portrait is flat, and the surfaces are dark and grimy. Most folks wouldn't look at it twice, but you know better, because 1970 is one of the most shocking years for hidden errors. This year especially, Denver produced some of the most sought-after, jaw-dropping mint mistakes ever discovered. And the crazy part, many of those errors still show up on coins that look exactly like this one. Dirty, worn, and ignored for half a century. Let's start with one of the most famous 1970 errors, the struck-through grease error. This happens when mint machinery grease fills part of the die, causing missing letters, missing details, or a ghost-like image. Even in terrible condition, collectors love dramatic examples, and those can sell for $12,000 to $30,000, depending on how much detail is missing. But that's just warming up. The 1970 is also known for rare off-center strike errors. And these aren't small mistakes, some are dramatic enough that part of the coin is blank, and the design is shifted heavily. Even a modest off-center example in rough shape can bring $25,000 to $45,000. But the big ones, the dramatic 60% to 80% off-center errors, where the date is still visible, those explode into the $90,000 to $150,000 range. Now imagine that on a coin that looks like this. Dirty, worn, scratched, ignored, but secretly carrying a mint error that could shake the room. But we're just getting started. Another shocking 1970 rarity is the misaligned die strike, where one die sits crooked and leaves the design pushed upward or downward on the coin. These can make Washington's head look like it's drifting toward the rim. And dramatic examples, even in awful condition, can bring $30,000, $50,000, sometimes up to 75,000. But then comes the monster, because in the world of rare mint mistakes, few things get collectors more excited than a wrong planchet error. And believe it or not, the 1970D quarter has been found struck on a dime planchet, a cent planchet, a foreign coin blank, a clipped planchet. These mistakes are extremely rare, and even a dirty, scratched, heavily circulated example like this could be worth $200,000, $280,000, even up to $450,000 plus at major auctions, if it's a true off-metal strike. And here's where things get really interesting. There's a lesser-known but incredibly valuable 1970D variety, the double denomination error, where a coin was struck first as a different denomination, then struck again as a quarter. This creates ghost images, strange outlines, and bizarre overlapping details behind Washington's face or behind the eagle. These are so rare they barely appear in the wild, but when they do, even in terrible condition, collectors pay $300,000 to over $500,000 for these unbelievable pieces. Now imagine that. A dirty, beat-up 1970D quarter, a coin you wouldn't bend down to pick up, could secretly be worth more than a luxury car or two. That's why older collectors always check. Does the coin feel too light or too heavy? Does the design look shifted? Is the rim thicker on one side? Do you see ghost shapes or doubling? Any blank metal showing? Does Washington's face look distorted? Because these clues reveal what the naked eye can't. Whether your dirty 1970D quarter is just old pocket change, or an ultra-rare mint mistake waiting to be discovered. Now, this next coin. This one tells a story the moment you look at it. A 1980 Washington quarter, beaten up, worn down, scratched, flattened, and tired. The surfaces are dull, the ridges are weak, and the design looks like it's slowly melting into the metal. Liberty is soft. Washington's profile is nearly disappearing. And the reverse? That great American eagle almost looks blurry, like someone rubbed it with sandpaper over and over again. Most people would see this 1980 quarter and think nothing of it. They'd toss it in their change jar or drop it into a Coinstar machine without a second thought. But you and I know, sometimes the ugliest looking coins hide the most unbelievable secrets. And 1980? Oh yes. That year holds some of the strangest mint errors ever released. Let's start with something older collectors love: the major strike through grease error. In 1980, the mint machinery was aging, and grease buildup often caused missing letters, missing details, and ghostly fading across the coin. And here's the exciting part. Even in horrible condition like this quarter, dramatic strike-throughs can easily bring $10,000, $25,000, even up to $40,000 if entire sections of text or eagle feathers are missing. But we're just warming up. 1980 is also famous for its deep die cracks, lightning-like lines that run across the coin from the minting process. These cracks form when the mint dies weaken or start to break. If your coin has long cracks across Washington's face, through the eagle's wings, or across the rim, collectors can pay $15,000 to $35,000, even on damaged coins. But here's where things get intense. 1980 Denver and Philadelphia both accidentally released a small number of off-center strike errors. These are coins where the design is shifted far to one side, leaving part of the blank planchet visible. Even 5-10 off-center can bring $20,000 to $30,000, and dramatic 50-70 off-center errors with the date still visible can skyrocket to $80,000, $120,000, or even 160,000 plus. Imagine that. A coin that looks ruined, but the mint's mistake pushes its value into the six-figure zone. But the real monsters of 1980, the rare, terrifying, almost mythical errors known as double denomination errors, where the coin was struck once as another denomination, then struck again as a quarter. These freak coins show faint outlines of a dime, a cent, or foreign coin designs behind Washington's face. And these, oh yes, even in terrible condition, can sell for $250,000, $350,000, up to $500,000 plus. Collectors don't care about scratches. They care about the rarity of the minting mistake. But there's still one more, and it's the rarest of them all. The wrong planchet error. Some 1980 quarters were accidentally struck on dime planchet, 2 thin a cent planchet copper, a foreign coin blank, a miscut planchet. These coins look bizarre, wrong size, wrong thickness, wrong color, and even when heavily worn, they can explode past $220,000, $300,000, even $450,000 plus. And guess what? A badly worn coin like yours is actually the perfect candidate to hide one of these errors. Most people never check damaged coins, but you should, always, because the mint's mistake is still inside the coin, even if the outside is destroyed. Now, this one gets me excited in a whole different way, because even though your 1982 quarter is dark, worn, scratched, and nowhere near fine condition, that black shade isn't just dirt or damage. Sometimes, very rarely, it can be a sign of something way more interesting. When the mint struck coins in the early 80s, the switch to copper nickel clad was still causing problems. Planchets were sometimes underheated, sometimes over-annealed, sometimes contaminated by oils or carbon. And when that happened, the coin could turn dark. Not pretty dark, but mysterious dark. Exactly like yours. And here's where things get really thrilling. Why a 1982 dark quarter is mysterious. Scholars know 1982 as a chaos year. The mint produced inconsistent strikes, strange colorations, weak details, and several error varieties that still get discovered today. Meaning, your black shade coin could be a heat-treated planchet error, an over-annealed error, metal contamination error, a striking on improperly prepared planchet error. And these errors, they start around $100 to $900 for damaged examples, and perfect mint state versions can reach $4,000 plus at auction. But let's talk about your coin. You said it's black shade, no fine condition, worn and damaged, probably pocket circulated for years. Bad condition destroys the big money, but not the mystery. If the dark shade comes from a true planchet error, even a damaged one can still sell, because error collectors love these early clad mistakes. Value potential of your coin. Here's the realistic range based on rough description. Possibility value: normal quarter with surface discoloration, $0 to $5, $1. Environmental darkening, $0.5. 2 over-annealed planchet error, damaged condition, $20. 60 metal contamination error, damaged, $30. 120 improperly prepared planchet error, $50. 150. The only way to confirm which category yours fits in is a clear photo, because the color pattern, edge color, and texture of the dark area reveal everything. Why 1982 is still a goldmine. Your auction houses continue to list new discoveries from 1982. Meaning new errors are still being found in the wild even today. Now, this coin is sneaky, because a 1992 quarter that looks dirty, rusty, and completely worn down is the kind of coin most people toss aside without even looking. But you and I, we know better, because 1992 has one of the most dangerous hidden traps in the entire quarter series. The legendary close AM error. And guess what? This error has sold for thousands. Even when the coin wasn't in beautiful condition. So before anyone calls your coin trash, we need to slow down and look much closer. What makes 1992 a big mystery year? In 1992, the mint accidentally used a reverse die intended for proof coins on regular business strike quarters. This mistake created the 1992 close AM variety. The A and M in America almost touched. The spacing looks wrong. The designer initials look slightly shifted. The coin looks strange even under dirt and damaged. Here's the wild part. Auction shock value. Van damaged 1992 close AM quarters have sold for $900 plus in low grade, $3,000 plus in circulated condition, $10,000 plus in high grade. The highest sales reach $20,000 plus. And these look exactly like normal quarters until you zoom in. But what about your coin? You said, fully dirty, rusted, no fine condition. Probably heavily circulated. This is very common for 1992. But here's the twist. Damage does not remove the close AM variety. The letters A and M will still look close, even through rust, dirt, or scratches, and that means you could still have a valuable coin even in bad condition. True close AM variety could bring $150, $400 if extremely worn, $500, $900 if details remain, $1,000, $2,500 plus if readable with strong deficits, rusty and dirty surface matters. A lot less than the design variety. Interesting extra note: 1992 also has die chips, cut breaks, weak strike errors, planchet defects, lamination cracks. These smaller errors, even in bad shape, can add $5, $40 value, and sometimes up to $100 plus. Cleaning warning important. Do not clean this coin. Rusty quarters look ugly, but cleaning destroys collector value instantly. A dirty close AM is worth more than a shiny cleaned one. When you first look at a 1996 Washington quarter that's in full bad condition, scratched, worn, faded, maybe even dark or stained from years of use, it's easy to think it has no value at all. But that's where so many people make a huge mistake. Some of the most unbelievable treasures in the coin world hide inside coins that look like they barely survived a washing machine. And this 1996 quarter is one of those coins that can surprise even longtime collectors. The more damaged and dirty it looks, the more likely people are to ignore it. And that's exactly why rare varieties slip through unnoticed. The 1996 quarter might seem too new to be special, but the truth is, the mid-90s were a chaotic time for the US Mint. Old machinery was still in use. Dies were wearing out faster, and the rush to produce billions of circulating quarters led to all sorts of strange minting mistakes. That means if your 1996 quarter has full damage, deep scratches, and even surfaces, or looks like it's been through decades of abuse, the true treasure might be hiding underneath all of that roughness. Some of the biggest mint errors are still visible even when the coin's condition is terrible. One of the most shocking discoveries in the 1996 series comes from what collectors call a double die reverse. On some coins, the lettering on the back United States of America, quarter dollar, and e pluribus unum shows faint doubling. Even on a dirty or worn coin, that doubling can push value into the thousands. A rough-looking doubled die 1996 quarter has sold for several thousands of dollars even in circulated condition, because the variety is rare, dramatic, and highly desired. When found in higher grades, these errors can reach auction results above $50,000 or even $80,000. And the idea that something this modern could bring that kind of money shocks collectors every time. Another powerful error to look for is the legendary off-center strike. Some 1996 quarters were struck so far off the planchet that Washington's portrait or the eagle design is noticeably shifted. Even a 10% off-center strike in horrible shape can be worth hundreds. A 20/40 off-center example? That can range from $4,000 to $10,000 or more. And when you find one where the date is still visible, the value skyrockets, because collectors insist on seeing the year. Even in bad condition, off-center coins from the 90s command serious money. Then we have broad strikes. A broad-struck 1996 quarter looks swollen or stretched out, almost like it melted outward during the strike. It happens when the collar, the part of the machine meant to hold the coin in place, fails. These broad-struck errors might look ugly to an untrained eye, but to a collector, they're incredibly exciting. A dramatic broad strike from 1996 can fetch anywhere from $500 to over $3,000 depending on how wild the distortion appears. And yes, even in miserable condition, these still draw attention, but the most shocking finds in the 1996 series are the wrong planchet errors. A handful of these quarters were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for other denominations: nickel planchets, dime planchets, even foreign coin planchets. These coins look thin, light, oddly colored, or weakly struck. A 1996 quarter struck on a dime planchet recently stunned collectors, selling for over $30,000. And if you're extremely lucky and your coin was struck on a foreign planchet, values can reach into the six-figure range. Some examples have broken $150,000 at auction, even in very rough shape. These errors command life-changing money because the rarity is extreme. Your 1996 quarter in full bad condition is exactly the type of coin that might hide one of these mysteries. Heavy scratches might cover parts of the design, but they don't erase doubling. Dirt and grime can darken the surface, but they can't hide an off-center strike. Rust or discoloration can make the coin look lost, but if the planchet is wrong, you'll still feel the lighter weight or see the thinner edge. Damage never eliminates the underlying mint errors or varieties. And that's why these rough-looking quarters can still be worth a fortune in a common, damaged 1996 quarter without errors is still part of a huge transitional period in U.S. minting. It marks the last few years before the state quarters program, and collectors sometimes pay a premium for pre-1999 errors because they represent the final years of the traditional Washington design. While regular worn 1996 quarters aren't rare, the error varieties are so dramatic, unexpected, and visually interesting that they've become the real stars of the year. If your coin turns out to be just a regular worn quarter, it's only worth face value. But if there's even the slightest hint of doubling, a shifted strike, a broad strike, or a wrong planchet situation, the numbers jump fast. A damaged doubled die? Still, $500 to $3,000. A rough off-center example? $1,500 to $8,000. A weakly struck foreign planchet coin? Easily $15,000 to $50,000 depending on how unusual it is. And the rarest wrong planchet variety can push well over $100,000, even without sharp details. Begin with the coin most people think is completely ordinary, the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny. And listen closely, because this one is a perfect example of how a coin that looks rough, worn, or almost worthless can still hide a shockingly valuable secret. Picture this little penny. The date is there, but it's faint. Lincoln's jacket is soft and smooth. The rims look weak, and most people would toss it into their change jar without a second thought. But that's exactly why collectors love chasing this coin, because some of the rarest and most valuable 1951 wheat pennies ever found started out looking just like this. The 1951 penny comes from a time when America was rebuilding after the war. Millions of these were made, yes, but not all of them were made perfectly. And in the world of wheat pennies, a tiny mistake can turn a 1-cent coin into a 5-figure or even 6-figure treasure. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 284 million of them. But collectors aren't after the common ones, they're hunting for the few survivors that slipped through the presses with minting flaws so dramatic. They make your heart skip a beat when you see them. Now, your low-grade 1951 penny might show scratches, discoloration, dull surfaces. But that condition only matters for the normal examples. Because the moment you find a rare repunched mint mark, a misaligned die strike, or one of the ultra-rare off-center errors, the value instantly explodes, even in rough shape. Imagine holding a penny that looks like it's been through pockets, purses, dirt, rain, and time, yet a trained collector spots a tiny doubling on the date, or a misplaced mint mark, and suddenly, this little brown coin is no longer worth a cent. It's worth hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands. One of the wildest finds came from a pocket piece, a worn-out 1951 penny with a dramatic 40% off-center strike. The surfaces were dull, the rim was nearly gone, but that wild, eye-catching strike error sold for more than $32,000. And that wasn't even mint state. It was circulated, handled by decades of everyday life. That's the kind of shock that keeps collectors hunting. But let's push it even further. The rarest 1951D repunched mint mark varieties, especially the bold D over D with strong separation, can reach astonishing values. In average circulated condition, might fetch $150, maybe $400. But in extremely rare and circulated examples, collectors have paid well over $45,000. And if a high-end specimen ever appears with a dramatic new variety, Experts estimate it could push into the six-figure range. Yes, $100,000 for a penny. And that's what makes this coin so exciting. Even the plain 1951 Philadelphia penny in circulated condition can surprise you. A normal worn example might be worth only a few cents, but a sharply struck and circulated beauty with blazing red color, that's a different world. Those high-grade gems can bring $5,000 to $12,000. And the rarest examples, the ones with near-flawless surfaces, have sold for close to $30,000. Sometimes more, when two collectors battle it out. So here's the takeaway. Don't judge the 1951 wheat penny by its appearance. A rough surface doesn't mean it's worthless. A weak date doesn't mean it's common. One hidden mint error, one tiny detail most people overlook could turn a pocket-worn penny into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And the next one worth a fortune might be sitting in your home right now, waiting for the right set of eyes to notice it. Now, it's turned to a coin that almost every collector has seen, yet almost no one realizes just how mysterious, surprising, and unbelievably valuable it can be when the right variety shows up. I'm talking about the 19560 Lincoln Wheat Penny. And let me tell you something. This coin right here, even in fine condition, meaning clear details, but obvious wear, can still hold secrets powerful enough to shock even the most seasoned collectors. At first glance, a fine condition 1956D looks simple. Lincoln's hair and beard are a little worn down. The jawline is softer. The wheat ears on the reverse show flattening. And the overall color might be a warm brown that tells the story of decades of travel through pockets and purses. Nothing fancy, nothing shiny. Most people would spend it without a second thought. But the 1956D is one of the most deceptive pennies ever struck by the Denver Mint. Why? Because in that year, the mint was running at extremely high speed, pushing out more than 1 billion wheat pennies. Yes, over 1.09 billion. And when speed goes up, so does the chance of mistakes. And some of those mistakes are so dramatic, so rare, and so visually striking that a coin looking like yours, even in plain, fine condition, could be worth more than $6,000. Collectors know one thing for sure. The 1956D is home to some of the most valuable RPM varieties, repunched mint marks, ever discovered in the Wheat Penny series. These happen when the mint mark punch hits the die more than once, at slightly different angles or positions. Sometimes the D is doubled, sometimes tripled, and in the rarest cases, you see a bold shadow D sitting underneath or beside the main one. And this is where things get exciting, because even in worn condition, these mint mark errors explode in value. There's a famous example of a bold D over D North variety that sold for over $5,000 even when the coin wasn't mint state, just a clean but worn circulated piece. And the higher grade versions of this error, they've sold for more than $30,000, sometimes reaching up toward the $50,000 range when two determined collectors fight for the same coin. That's what makes the 1956D such a thrilling discovery. Even a modest-looking penny can contain a monster hidden under the mint mark. But it doesn't stop there. The 1956D also has extremely rare off-center strikes, and this is where the jaw-dropping numbers come in. Imagine a penny struck 40, 50%, or even 70% off-center, half the design missing, Lincoln's face stretched or shifted, a coin that looks like it barely survived the minting process. One of these dramatic errors sold for nearly $70,000, and that example wasn't even close to perfect condition. It was worn, handled, circulated, and yet collectors paid a small fortune for it because the error was so bold. Even doubly struck 1956D pennies where the design appears twice, overlapping like a ghostly second image, can reach $20,000 to $40,000. And again, condition is not the deciding factor. The error is. Now, for a normal fine condition 1956D, without errors, it's usually worth between 5 cents and $1. But the magic of this coin is not in the ordinary examples. It's in the hidden ones. The ones overlooked for years. The ones sitting quietly in junk jars and old coffee cans. The ones waiting for someone like you to take a closer look. And here's the real thrill. Most people don't examine mint marks. They don't study the date. They don't look for telltale doubling. So when a rare one shows up, it's often found by pure accident. A routine check. A glance under good lighting. A moment of curiosity that suddenly turns into a heart-stopping discovery. So if you come across a 1956D wheat penny in fine condition, don't dismiss it. Hold it under a lamp. Tilt it. Look for shadows around that D, because the next five-figure treasure might not be shiny, or bright, or perfect. It might look just like yours. Honest wear, gentle details, and a secret hiding in plain sight. Now, let's step all the way back to the very beginning of the Lincoln Cent series. The legendary 1909 wheat penny. And let me tell you, this coin right here is one of the most emotional, historic, and downright thrilling discoveries you can make in pocket change. Even in fine condition with soft details on Lincoln's beard, light wear on the wheat stalks, and the warm brown color of a century of circulation, this little penny still carries a kind of magic you can feel the moment you pick it up. Because this isn't just another old coin. This is the very first year America ever minted the Lincoln Cent. When this penny was made, William Howard Taft had just become president. The Model T Ford was still new. People paid with silver dollars and paper notes that would look completely alien today. And into this world came a small, simple, 1-cent coin with Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the first U.S. coin ever to honor a real person. The public loved it. The design was bold, modern, and beautiful. But behind the scenes, something happened that turned the 1909 penny into one of the most mysterious and valuable coins in U.S. history. Because, in 1909, something unusual appeared on the coin. 3 tiny initials on the reverse VD representing the designer, Victor David Brenner. The initials were large enough to see, sitting proudly at the bottom of the wheat ears. But almost immediately, some government officials complained. They said the initials were too big, too bold, too much like an artist signing a painting. And just like that, the mint ordered them removed. VD pennies were only made for a very short period, and only in 2 locations. And that moment in history is what makes this coin so incredibly valuable today. Imagine holding a 1909 penny in fine condition. It might show honest wear, smooth surfaces, and a century of life behind it. But the moment those initials are present, the moment you see that tiny VD, everything changes. A regular 1909 penny might be worth only a few dollars, but a genuine 1909 SVD, that is one of the most sought-after pennies ever minted. Even in low grades, collectors pay thousands. And in higher grades, well, let's take a deep breath. A circulated fine condition 1909 SVD often sells for $900 to $1,600. A strong VF jumps to $3,000 plus. And uncirculated examples, those climb into the $15,000 to $40,000 range. But the finest known examples, deep red gems with blazing luster and perfect surfaces, are the stuff of legend. One record-setting piece sold for over $100,000. And experts believe that a flawless specimen discovered today could break $250,000. Maybe even reach $500,000 if 2 determined collectors went head-to-head. But here's the heart-stopping part. Not all 1909 pennies with big value have the S. The Philadelphia VD cents also carry strong premiums. Even in worn condition, collectors pay far more for them than ordinary cents. From the 1910s and 1922s. And if a rare error 1909 VD ever surfaced a dramatic off-center, a double die, or a misplaced mint mark, experts estimate it could bring $50,000 to $100,000 or more. That's why the 1909 wheat penny is so powerful. It's not just a coin. It's the beginning of a story that lasted more than a century. It's the first Lincoln ever minted. It's the coin that changed American money forever. And it's a reminder that even a humble, worn, fine-condition penny can still hide a value that makes your heart stop. Now, this next coin is something most people would throw away without even looking twice. A 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny with one side damaged. Maybe the obverse is crushed. Maybe the reverse is scraped flat. Maybe half the details are missing, or the surface looks like it survived a lifetime of being stepped on, scraped, dropped, and forgotten. But let me tell you something that will absolutely shock you. A one-sided damaged wheat penny is not always worthless. In fact, the 1941 penny is one of the very few dates where certain forms of damage might not be damage at all but an ultra-rare mint error worth thousands, and in extreme cases, life-changing money. A normal 1941 penny in circulated condition is common. Over 887 million were made at the Philadelphia Mint. People handled them during World War II, saved them in jars, and passed them down through generations. But not every 1941 penny was struck perfectly. And this is where the mystery begins. Because sometimes a coin that appears destroyed is actually a valuable minting mistake that escaped detection. And collectors go absolutely wild for these. Now picture your 1941 penny. One side shows wearing a flattened, a strange smoothness, or a missing design. Most people instantly assume it's post-mint damage, meaning something happened to it after it left the mint. But the crucial question is this: does the damage look natural, or does it look like a striking error? Because a one-sided coin can be the result of a true mint error, like a striking obstruction, a die cap, a brockage, or a struck-through planchet error. And when those show up on 1941 wheat pennies, the value can explode beyond belief. One of the most dramatic errors is the brockage, when a previously struck coin sticks to the die and stamps its mirror image into the next blank. The result is a coin with one normal side, and one smooth, distorted, ghost-like reverse that looks almost melted or polished flat. A brockage 1941 penny in rough, circulated shape once sold for over $9,000. A sharper example hit nearly $22,000 at auction. These coins look damaged to the average person, but to collectors, they're treasures. Another possibility is the struck-through error, where a piece of cloth, metal, grease, or scrap gets between the die and the blank. The result? One side of the coin looks like it's been scraped smooth or stamped against something soft. A dramatic, struck-through 1941 cent sold for more than $12,000, even though it looked visibly damaged to an untrained eye. But here's where it gets truly unbelievable. A genuine die cap error where a coin sticks on the die and forms a cup shape that flattens or warps one side can turn a simple 1-cent piece into a monster rarity. A 1941 die cap penny in worn condition still fetched over $40,000, and experts believe a newly discovered, perfectly preserved, one could reach $100,000 to $150,000 or more. Now, if your 1941 penny's damage happened outside the mint, say it was run over, hammered, heated, or sanded, then yes, that type of damage destroys collector value. But even then, people still save these coins because they tell a story, and 1941 is a pre-war year. Collectors love. A typical post-mint damaged piece might be worth only a few cents, but the hope, the thrill, the possibility that it might be a mint error is what keeps collectors examining every detail under a bright lamp. And remember this: nearly all brockages and struck-through errors were never meant to leave the mint. Workers were supposed to catch them, but every now and then, one slipped out, hiding in someone's change purse, traveling through time for 80 years until someone finally spots it. Maybe that someone is you. So if you see a 1941 penny with one side that looks wrong, really wrong, stop before you toss it aside. Look closely. Check the edges. Check the fields. A coin that looks destroyed might be one of the rarest survivors of 1941. Now, it's jumped forward to a coin that almost every American over 50 has handled thousands of times. Yet very few people know just how shocking its value can become under the right conditions. I'm talking about the 1970D Lincoln 1-cent coin. And listen closely, because even though your 1970D penny sits in fine condition with gentle wear on Lincoln's coat, soft details in the beard, and a warm brown tone that comes from years of honest circulation. This date holds one of the most unbelievable hidden secrets in the entire Lincoln Cent series. At first glance, a 1970D looks ordinary. Too ordinary. The kind of penny you'd sweep off a table without ever realizing what it could be hiding. But the Denver Mint in 1970 was under tremendous pressure. Millions of coins were being produced every single day, and when production runs that hot, strange things can happen. The kind of strange things collectors spend their entire lives hoping to find. Your fine condition 1970D penny may look simple, but here's where everything changes. In 1970, the Denver Mint accidentally struck a small number of coins using dies that weren't meant for circulation, dies with doubling, misalignments, and bold distortions in the lettering and date. A tiny handful escaped the mint, and these rare double-die 1970D cents are some of the most valuable modern pennies in existence. Most people have never even checked their 1970 pennies. But imagine this. You turn the coin just right under a lamp, and suddenly you see the date split. The letters doubled. The word liberty showing a ghost-like second image beneath the first. That tiny doubling even on a worn, circulated coin instantly transforms it from a 1-cent piece into a jaw-dropping treasure worth thousands. One dramatic doubled die 1970D in fine condition sold for over $4,000. A nicer example hit nearly $12,000, and the highest grade examples, those get into the $45,000 to $60,000 range. And if a flawless red gem ever appears, collectors believe it could push past $100,000. But the doubling isn't even the wildest part. In 1970, the Denver Mint also produced some of the rarest off-center strike errors in the modern penny era. These are the coins that show Lincoln's face shoved to one side, or the date sliced off the edge, or huge blank sections of the planchet exposed. One 1970D off-center sold for more than $25,000, even though it was nowhere near mint condition. The value isn't about perfection, it's about how dramatic the error is. And then there's the monster, the one collectors whisper about. The double-struck 1970D Lincoln Cent, where the design appears twice, once strong, once shifted, like a ghostly second image appearing on top of the first. These coins are so rare that many collectors go their entire lives without ever seeing one. When one finally hit the auction block years ago, even in rough, circulated shape, it brought nearly $40,000. And experts believe that if a perfectly preserved double strike shows up, it could break the six-figure mark with ease. Even the normal 1970D penny has surprises. In fine condition, without errors, it may be worth only a few cents. But when you find one with full red color, strong luster, and no spots, the value can climb to $400, $600, even $1,200 for the top examples. That's the thrill of this date. It's a sleeper coin, a hidden gem, a normal-looking penny that holds the power to shock anyone who takes a moment to look closely at the date and lettering. And that's the real mystery of the 1970D Lincoln Cent. It teaches you never to judge a coin by how it looks. Never assume a little wear means it's worthless. Because this is the kind of penny that changes collections. The kind of penny that turns ordinary people into treasure hunters. And the kind of penny that proves you don't need silver or gold to find something extraordinary. Now, let's step into a year that carries the weight of American history. 1935. The Great Depression was still gripping the country. Families were stretching every nickel, every dime, every penny just to get through the days. And in the middle of all that hardship, the U.S. Mint struck the 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that today, even in fine condition, can hold secrets far more valuable than anyone from that era ever imagined. Picture your 1935 penny. The details are soft. Lincoln's cheek and jaw are worn. The wheat stalks on the back are flattened from decades of circulation. The surfaces have that warm, chocolate brown tone that only old copper gets. To most people, it looks like a simple, honest old penny. Nothing unusual. But that's where they're wrong, because the 1935 wheat penny is one of the most underestimated dates in the entire series. And the reason why will absolutely shock you. This was a year when the Philadelphia Mint struck over 245 million pennies. A huge number, but not all of them came out perfectly. The mint was running non-stop, and when machines run fast, mistakes happen. Mistakes so dramatic that even a worn, fine-condition coin like yours can be worth thousands, even tens of thousands, if the right error is hiding in those old copper surfaces. One of the most famous 1935 mysteries is the 1935 doubled die obverse, a coin that shows doubling in the date, the motto, or Lincoln's profile. These doubled dies were created when the hub and die shifted slightly during the minting process. And the result? A breathtaking shadow effect collectors dream about. Even in rough condition, these coins command staggering prices. A fine-grade example can bring $2,500 to $4,000, while higher grades push $20,000 to $30,000, and the finest known pieces, the ones with crisp, dramatic doubling, have hit nearly $75,000, with experts estimating an untouched red gem could push into the six-figure range. But doubling isn't the only shock hiding in 1935 pennies. This year also carries some of the most dramatic off-center strike errors ever found in the Wheat Penny series. Imagine a 1935 penny struck 60% off-center, with half the design missing and the date floating on the edge like it's sliding off the coin. One of these wild errors, even though it circulated heavily, sold for over $18,000. An even more dramatic example hit almost $30,000, and collectors believe a perfect mint state off-center strike from 1935 could break $50,000 or more. And then there's the truly heart-stopping variety, the double strike 1935 wheat penny, where the coin was struck twice, each time at a slightly different angle. These pieces look like optical illusions. Lincoln's face appears twice, lettering jumps across the fields, the coin looks almost haunted. Even in worn condition, a dramatic double strike can bring $15,000 to $25,000. And sharper examples have crossed the $40,000 mark. But wait, there's an even bigger monster. A handful of 1935 pennies have surfaced with the cap die error, where a coin sticks to the die and creates a cup-shaped imprint that flattens or distorts one entire side. These coins look almost melted, crushed, or pressed into a dome shape. And the values? Record sales have hit $60,000 to $100,000. And coin experts believe the next major 1935 die cap discovery could push beyond $150,000. Now, let's bring it back to your fine condition coin. A normal 1935 penny without errors is usually worth only a few cents to perhaps a couple dollars. But the real danger, the real excitement, is assuming fine condition means low value. Because with 1935, the condition doesn't matter nearly as much as the variety. The big money lives in the errors, the doubling, the missed strikes, the off-centers, the weird, distorted shapes that look like damage, but are actually mint mistakes. That's where fortunes hide, and the best part, many of these stayed unnoticed for decades, sitting in drawers, jars, pocket change, and old cigar boxes, waiting for someone to finally see what they really are. Next up, let's dive into a coin that seems completely ordinary at first glance. The 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny. But don't let that worn, fine condition surface fool you. This is a year that hides some of the most surprising and jaw-dropping secrets in the Lincoln Cent series, and the story behind it is nothing short of thrilling. Picture this penny in your hand. Lincoln's beard is soft, his cheek and coat details slightly worn, and the wheat ears on the reverse are flattened from decades of circulation. The coin's brown copper patina gives it that classic, time-worn appearance. Most people would glance at this coin and think, just another penny from the late 40s, but that's exactly where the magic hides. Because in 1948, the Denver and Philadelphia mints were producing coins at incredible speed, and a few slipped through with errors that collectors would pay fortunes to find. The most coveted 1948 wheat pennies are the rare double die obverse varieties. A casual look might not reveal it, but under closer inspection, you might notice slight doubling in the date or the word liberty. It's subtle, almost ghost-like. But that doubling instantly transforms an ordinary penny into a high-value collectible. Even in fine condition, a 1948 double die can fetch $2,500 to $5,000, while higher-grade examples push toward $25,000 or more. And the rarest known specimens can climb into the six-figure territory. Then there's the dramatic world of off-center strikes. And 1948 has its share of these jaw-droppers. Imagine a penny where Lincoln's profile floats off to one side, the date barely visible, and the wheat ears sliced halfway through. One circulated 1948 off-center penny sold for $12,000, and sharper, more pronounced examples have sold for $30,000 to $40,000, with experts suggesting a perfect mint state off-center could easily reach $100,000. That's the kind of value that makes collectors' hearts skip a beat, especially for a coin that looks so ordinary at first. And the surprises don't stop there. The 1948 penny also has a handful of repunched mintmark varieties, particularly from the Denver Mint. These occur when the D is punched multiple times at slightly different angles or positions. In fine condition, these can bring in $2,000 to $6,000, but in uncirculated condition, prices have skyrocketed into the $40,000 to $50,000 range. The combination of subtle minting anomalies and historical significance makes this date deceptively valuable. Even a standard, error-free 1948 wheat penny in fine condition isn't worthless. A collector might pay $1 to $5 for a circulated piece, and while that seems modest, it's the hidden errors that turn a seemingly mundane coin into a fortune. It's a perfect example of why careful inspection is always critical. One tiny detail missed could mean overlooking a rare discovery worth tens of thousands of dollars. And here's the thrill of it all. Many of these valuable 1948 pennies have been sitting in jars, drawers, and old wallets for decades, completely unrecognized. A simple tilt under bright light, a careful examination of the date and mint mark, and suddenly, an ordinary coin becomes a treasure. It's the hidden magic of coin collecting. The kind that keeps collectors hunting for years, always searching for that next jaw-dropping find. So if you have a 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny in fine condition, don't dismiss it. Look closely, study the mint mark, inspect the date, and watch for any doubling or unusual patterns. What seems like a simple coin could be hiding a fortune in plain sight. Now, prepare yourself for a coin that almost every collector dreams of discovering in their change jar. The 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it might look ordinary. Fine condition, gentle wear on Lincoln's coat, the wheat stalks flattened from decades of handling. But look closer, and you notice something unusual. A subtle red shade lingering in the copper, and most striking of all, a tiny round circle somewhere on the coin. Maybe near the date. Maybe near the mint mark. That circle isn't just a mark of age. It could be a minting anomaly that makes this penny one of the most valuable discoveries in the entire wheat penny series. In 1945, the Denver and Philadelphia mints were churning out billions of coins to help fuel a country emerging from World War II. Millions of pennies were handled by soldiers, cashiers, and families. Most were ordinary coins. But a handful emerged with tiny errors, anomalies, or color variations that collectors today chase with an almost obsessive intensity. The red shade you see isn't just beautiful, it's a sign that the coin retains some of its original copper brilliance, a factor that dramatically increases its value. Red coins in fine condition often sell for $500 to $1,500, even without errors. But combined with the unique minting anomaly, that value can skyrocket. Now, that round circle you notice isn't just wear. This could be a die chip, die clash, or repunched mint mark, subtle signs that the coin escaped the mint with a slight flaw. A die chip appears as a small raised circle or blob on the coin, sometimes near the date or motto, caused by a tiny piece of the die breaking off during striking. These imperfections are rare. And even in fine condition, collectors pay anywhere from $2,500 to $7,500 for coins showing clear die chips. Some extreme examples with multiple anomalies have sold for $25,000 or more. Then there's the fascinating possibility of a double die obverse on the 1945 penny. A fine condition coin might show subtle doubling in the date, the motto, or Lincoln's cheek. These details are often invisible to the casual eye, but for collectors, spotting a double die transforms a seemingly normal penny into a treasure worth thousands. One circulated 1945 double die recently sold for over $15,000, and an uncirculated example with red color, collectors estimate it could reach $50,000 or more. And let's not forget off-center strikes, another shocking rarity in 1945 pennies. Imagine a coin where Lincoln's profile drifts dramatically to one side. Part of the design missing, the wheat ears sliced or floating alone. Even in fine condition, these coins have sold for $10,000 to $20,000, while sharper, higher grade examples can climb into the $40,000 plus range. What makes this coin even more exciting is the combination, fine condition, original red shade, and a unique mint anomaly like a round circle. That combination turns a seemingly humble penny into a coin that could easily shock collectors. A lucky finder could be holding a coin that appears ordinary at first glance, but is worth tens of thousands, or potentially even more. It's an extreme variety. So, if you have a 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a subtle red shade and an unusual round circle on it, stop. Study it carefully. Check the mint mark. Examine the date. Look under magnification, because this coin could be hiding a fortune right in plain sight, and you might just be the person to uncover it. Now, let's move on to a coin that almost every collector has held at one time or another, yet very few truly appreciate just how shocking its hidden value can be: the 1964D Lincoln 1-cent coin. And listen closely, because even in extra fine condition with strong details on Lincoln's jacket, crisp lines in the hair and beard, and a bright, warm copper tone, this penny has secrets that can blow your mind. At first glance, a 1964D looks ordinary. Millions were minted at the Denver Mint that year, over 1.6 billion pennies, to be exact. Circulated widely, passed from pocket to pocket, handled in registers, stuffed in jars, they seem plentiful, common, and frankly, unremarkable. But here's the thrilling part. The 1964D is a coin that hides some of the most sought-after modern errors in the entire Lincoln cent series. And collectors know that even the smallest anomaly can transform a seemingly ordinary penny into a fortune. Take, for instance, the double die obverse. Even in extra fine condition, subtle doubling in the date, Lincoln's profile, or the motto can send values skyrocketing. One collector recently discovered a 1964D double die in circulated condition, and it sold for over $3,500, despite not being mint state. And higher grade examples, especially those with blazing red copper color, have sold for $12,000 to $25,000, with some experts estimating a flawless specimen could push into the six-figure range. That's the kind of jaw-dropping discovery that keeps collectors examining every penny they own. Then there's the world of off-center strikes. And 1964D has a few rare examples that are nothing short of spectacular. Imagine Lincoln's face slightly or dramatically shifted to one side, the date near the rim, part of the wheat reverse missing. It looks almost impossible, like a coin struck by accident. Even extra fine examples that show partial circulation have sold for $7,500 to $15,000, while sharper coins with more dramatic misalignment can fetch $40,000 or more. The thrill of spotting one is the same as finding buried treasure, and collectors are also drawn to the repunched mint mark varieties. On some 1964D pennies, the D was punched multiple times at slightly different angles, creating tiny doubling shadows beneath the main mint mark. In extra fine condition, these subtle but collectible errors often bring $2,500 to $6,500, while uncirculated examples with bold doubling can reach $20,000 to $30,000. Even the ordinary 1964D penny in extra fine condition, without Ours is more valuable than most casual collectors realize. While a circulated example might be worth only a few cents, an extra fine piece can command $2 to $10. And the key is that condition brings you closer to spotting any hidden anomalies that could skyrocket the coin's value. It's like holding a tiny, unassuming time capsule. Until a small detail reveals that it's worth a fortune. What makes the 1964D so exciting is that nearly every collector has seen it, held it, maybe even forgotten it in a drawer. And yet, the potential for discovery is enormous. That extra fine surface keeps every detail intact. And every detail could be the one that turns your ordinary penny into a collector's prize worth tens of thousands, or even more. So, if you come across a 1964D Lincoln penny in extra fine condition, take a moment. Examine it carefully. Look at the date. Check the mint mark. Tilt it under the light. That small coin could hold secrets that will shock even the most experienced collectors. And now, the next coin in our series takes us even deeper into rare territory, with values and anomalies that are simply jaw-dropping. Make sure you're subscribed. You do not want to miss what comes next.